Morning. Good Erev Shabbos. In the Ten Commandments we just heard last week, it seems a bit odd that it doesn't say, I am the Lord your God, when God introduces himself in the Ten Commandments. First time the nation, or any nation in history, has ever experienced a synchronous experience of divinity. The foundation of our religion is based on that notion that it's not just a guy and a bunch of his friends saying let's make up a story to control the world. Okay, don't ask me about Trump right now. I cannot believe the evidence they have against him. That is insane. Don't ask me my opinion yet, because it's obvious. Why do when God introduces himself, he says, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. He could have said a bigger statement, I am the Lord the God who creates the world. That's kind of important too. Though in the simplest meaning, I'm just thinking, these people were slaves for a good 86 years, foreigners for 210 years. They finally got out and are going to, actually I don't know if they knew that they were getting the promised land so much as they knew that they were going to receive the Torah. I think the freedom to be able to do that was more relevant to them at the time as well, wouldn't you think? The experience was by men, women, and children of all ages, including the kitchen staff and everybody else. Shifcha Shabayam. A maidservant had the experience of the same thing as everyone else. Their souls all flew out of their bodies. It was but those maidservants, those people, probably would be one to know that the one who took them out is the one who's now teaching them. Creating the world, I would think that creating the world is like, well, if there's going to be someone to teach that to, that necessitates that the world was created. It's almost kind of obvious in a way, as opposed to the idea that the one who did all those fantastic miracles, this is who it is. And everyone has this revelation at Mount Sinai. But here we see a very deep interpretation. Because they did experience God creating the world at that moment. They heard God's voice from all the 6 dimensions, forward, around, and up and above and below. They were having that experience, but it didn't last. Welcome. That moment lasted, I don't know, as long as a trilogy. No, how long would it have taken? Have you ever heard that discussed? How long did the Ten Commandments take? Was it like a single that we used to have when we were kids? The single records, what were they called? And the B side, nobody knew what it was on ever. Only the A side. If the artist is good, wouldn't he make 2 good songs? Probably enough to fit on 1 LP. Or EPs, I think they were called. When the Torah was given, they had a great experience. It was like a peek into the meaning and truth of everything. But the voice stopped, the lightning stopped, and they were able to ascend the mountains, and I presume to collect flowers for their loved ones. The whole mountain was blossomed with flowers miraculously. The flowers became something, not part of any holy physical thing. There was an echo at Mount Sinai. No, there was no echo at Har Sinai. It permeated the world, but not in a way that was experiential in an overt way anymore. The moment was over and was intended to inspire not just them for the rest of their lives, but every future generation thereafter. So when God says, I am the Lord your God who took you forth from the land of Egypt, he doesn't say, I am the Lord your God who creates the world every second. Because that was intended to have closed curtains in front of it until a certain time. The Messianic era is when it will be permanently unveiled, the secret of divinity in every single thing from every direction. Kaya hisavas abriya ma'in layesh nishar behelim gam la'achrei matan Torah, the Rebbe says here in this fascinating note. The power of God creating the world every second that remained concealed after that experience in Mount Sinai. It became something that you had to pursue as a enterprise unto itself. I want to experience that. I want to know the dveikus. Their souls flew out of the body from every utterance that they heard. And the tal Torah mechayeu, the dew of God in his Torah, enlivened them again, brought them back into their bodies. They had left their bodies because they experienced the source of everything, including their bodies, and their souls fly out in that experience. It was too overwhelming for the physical body, so they had to be brought in, welcome Sean, with the tal of Torah. They had to be enlivened, invigorated, to come back into their bodies. Because Chassidus teaches that there is no separation. That's the whole point of the giving of Torah. God comes down from below and the worlds unveil themselves from God comes from above and into the heavens, and the heavens come down on the mountain, and the whole thing just opens up as one statement of divinity at every single frequency. They had that all at the same time. It was too much for them to take, blasted out of their existence, brought back with the tal of Torah. The tal of Torah, the dew of Torah, was given on with the Ten Commandments and everything. You just didn't have the Baal Shem Tov and his the Rebbeim that followed him to teach and unveil and to present. It was something that was there in a miraculous stones that were in a stunning gold casing, and you couldn't go in there because if you did, you would see something that you couldn't handle. And look at all the story in the Torah of Nadav and Avihu, the children of Aaron. They went too far, just like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The fire went into their nostrils, and their souls flew out of their bodies. It was actually not forbidden to them at the time to do it. It became forbidden afterwards because the intent was to come into bodies and experience the same thing. So bodies take generations of... No. The bodies that we're born with are not going to be so different from the bodies that they had at those people at Mount Sinai who we stem from. It's the accumulative unveiling of what was already there, given as a gift, became accessible now through Torah and translations into 70 languages. So now you have access to study an approach to life where you assume a mindset that comes to this awareness. So the consciousness is what it involves, not the bodies will follow that consciousness. So it doesn't have to be a special body at Mount Sinai. They ate man in the desert, manna. They had no, everything was pure and efficient. No waste whatsoever in the desert, interestingly. Our bodies are intended to take on boundless, infinite, divine expression through simply embodying in your mindset, in your whatever goes on in your brain, aligned with a secret tradition that unveils the Taimei Torah, the Tainug of Torah, the pleasure in Torah. When you give intense meaning to everything, the moments when you're talking to your children are, I'm telling you, much more interesting than TikTok. Okay, that's my introduction. I want to learn a bit of Likutei Torah with you. So I'm going to put this down. I wanted to give you a vision of the park a little bit. Okay, wait, I do this right now. I have like a built-in selfie stick in this park bench, just provided from above. Generous. It would be more generous if we taught our children how to keep this place more tidy, but thank you. But hopefully this will elevate it a bit, these classes here. Okay, this is beautiful. Maybe we'll back up and review this a little bit. So the way to reveal this promise on this unveiling, forever going to continue, the experience in Mount Sinai is going to forever be part of your experience from now on, once you simply take on all the secrets it contains. That's accomplished. The transformation that it's supposed to engender is accomplished through prayer. So we're learning about prayer in Parshas Nasai, the upliftedness, the offering of the inaugural gifts to the Holy Temple, the sanctuary in the desert, of the leaders of the Jewish people, representing good-heartedness. So prayer is expressing that which is an appreciation and a desire to experience the infinity of God, because that's the truth. You approach that endeavor through prayer. That's called Aveda Shebelev. You want to have purity of heart to experience the truth? You can't handle the truth. You want to be able to handle the truth? Find your pure heart that I gave you, your pure soul. So that's what you learned yesterday. Leiv Ta'or bara li Elokim, David HaMelech says. A pure heart God has created for me. Bar Levav, the purity of heart. When your heart is pure of any selfish motivation, that is called the sanctuary wherein God's infinite light reveals itself. That's what David HaMelech calls Naki Kapayim Uvar Levav, clear of hand. In other words, you're not dipping into things that you shouldn't. Purity of heart expressed in prayer, or even it becomes a meditation to try and attain that. But ultimately, that's the authentic expression of the heart. As we say, Leiv Ta'or bara li Elokim. God made for me a pure heart. Every one of your children is good. And when your heart isn't mixed in with anything of the hands, Azai Nikra Mishkan Lishkan by Gilu Er Hashem, then that's the sanctuary of God on earth. And that is divinity revealed in your soul. So your soul has it. It's just sort of getting in more in touch and familiar with the source from whence it came, which is infinity. So even the soul's consciousness is finite, and therefore it always has deeper to go towards infinity as it looks deeper within it and experiences that. So that whole process and every level depends upon what you do in this physical world every single day and every moment. That the way to invigorate yourself for that is accomplished through prayer. Prayer does involve, of course, preparation with knowing what to meditate about. Contrary to Eastern other types of meditation, they are usually focused on stilling mind and transcending mind. Judaism believes use the mind as a tool towards achieving that. So the mind itself lends itself to its own dissolution. You sort of trick it into doing that by giving it a very compelling, engaging Torah. The wisdom is so brilliant and beautiful in its unveiling that it presents its own reward through the endeavor. That's what Torah is. That's what the Chassidus of Torah reveals, the taimei Torah, the tastiness of the Torah. Tam means reason, but tam means flavor. So Bina and the 50 gates all contained. So maybe a few lines we'll read, like 5 or 6. Or if we get more people, I'm staying longer. This unveils the concealment that the natural inclination brings everyone towards. So we always have some opportunity to work on something. But by doing this, by authentic prayer, that's like marching the sanctuary through the wild and conquering it. The concealment of the world becomes something that actually is the most familiar way to know the origin of all. Like if you're going to understand the meaning of a poem, read the words first, we were taught. Figure out what it's saying in the simplest way. Every word is just telling you one thing. My art criticism teacher, Barry O'Gary, God bless his soul, what a good man he was and a wise man. He said, form has meaning and meaning has form. Assume the image that's on the canvas and you will know what it's intended to communicate. So when the Torah speaks to us about things that are familiar to us, you're supposed to learn what fascinates. That's the Aryan Torah after you go through your grade school mandatory curriculum. You're learning to understand things that affect you. So some people go to the index and say, okay, my name is this, my experience is this, and where can I read about that? And that is a very cool way to do research and to find meaning in your life. But you will find that if you simply go to those well springs that quench so pronouncedly, that's where God speaks to you. So I'm always confident that whatever I'm learning at the time is meant to teach me how to deal with the times. So I don't have to talk about current events because it's all contained in my very spotlighted view. We have the sense that the world is something existing and important. And in fact, that's true. It's true at the level where we find ourselves. The world is in fact a separated, independent, detached thing, because that's what we put ourselves in, that dynamic. We bring ourselves there. But when we identify with the fact that there is one origination for everything, including my thought and my breakfast, it's all one big cholent. So this is called the coarseness of the animal soul. That's the inclination to bring someone to have that sort of, like the Sher Habar, the pure ox, or the wild ox, that the behemoth that's promised to come and the festival for the righteous in the world to come to watch. That we've spoken about that at length. That the reason why it represents the transformation, the purity of an animal, contrary to a fish, lives in its own environment and depends on it. But the behemoth is what says, I'm kind of separate from I could hop off this flat earth that I'm on. And I'm independent of it. It comes from the earth, but it doesn't see that. It's a concealment, it's a veil. So we've spoken about that amazing, incredible yin-yang of it's not a conflict. It's seen in Chassidus as a dialogue where each one uplifts the other. It's the two types of tzaddikim that is spoken about there. I think it's in Torah Air. that one is one who relates to the physical world, and that's the place where he brings divinity, and another who leaves the world to experience the immersive experience of the Leviathan, the fish. That's for another footnote, bookmark. Okay, so this is probably where we left off. So the sanctuary is marched through the desert, through the wild, and that subdues the wild, makes it recognize the purpose of this, the pursuit of what it represents, the holiness in the world itself. So that you go to the wild of the world to make that statement and to empower all future generations to be able to face what's really going on in them, look it in the eye, thank you, and say, I'm meant to bring divinity there. Divinity means boundlessness. I will overcome, I will succeed. That's empowering to think that way. So when you come in conflict or have to contend with what's bringing you away from what's good for you, the Yetzer Hara, midbar, that's the wild, the wilderness. Shu eretz leizarua, an unsettled, unplanted land. It's not going to do anything productive in the desert. Which is everything that is not something that you bring God into. When God becomes part of the football game, it's not just a waste of time anymore. So you have to bring Hashem there too. Yashav Adam Sham, the meaning of no person sat there. Perish Adam, when we say person, Adam, hu mashakasav al dmus hakise dmus kimare Adam. So we describe the wilderness as a place where people don't sit in. What is people? What's an Adam? A person? That's the form that Yechezkel, Ezekiel saw, who sat on the glorious throne on the chariot, described there in such poetic, mystical terms. And on the throne there was a person. Kemare Adam, it was like the vision of a person. Lo Yashav Sham. When we say that no one dwells in the wild, the person, this Adam Ha'elyain, in order to bring that person into the throne, into the world, you have to make a place suitable of that throne. So you make a sanctuary and you put a throne there, and then the Adam is Yashav Sham. You bring in this divine reflection of you. You put that in sync. It's a bit like that movie Her. Did you ever see that? The AI assumes someone's body? Something wild like that. They sort of became aligned. So at every dimension, they actually artificially contrived what it would be like to actually be in the world. That was a fascinating movie. So there's an Adam and an Elyon. There's a supernal man that has 10 sources of expression. That's made in a certain, like, look at not Galileo Figaro, but not Aristotle, but what's his name? Not Rembrandt, getting closer. Leonardo da Vinci. He puts the relative proportion of every single part of the body. It's supposed to be in a certain thing according to their aesthetic philosophy and ideals of perfection. Look it up. Or don't, better. The Kabbalah Lahavdil and the Torah in general defines a person in a certain way to reflect that. And when you assume that and express that in every way, including ways that communicate about things to do with the heart or communicate directly to the heart, you apply that and you are aligned. And you've brought this Adam Elyon, this expression of godliness. How would God interact with the world if he could be there? So he aligns all these spheres in a certain shape that reflects the human body. When everything in the human body is in sync with the person, what the person likes to do. This Adam Elyon, it describes all of his behaviors and desires in the Torah very clearly. If you do this, it's good. If you don't do this, so that's a perfect blueprint of how you are supposed to act and what positions your body assumes, like when you wrap tefillin, for example, or the way you're supposed to move in this world reflects divine secrets and ways for God to communicate to you, so that you bring God into that thought, and then everything's aligned. I hope that's complete, because I want to stop there. I thought that's probably where we finished yesterday. I think we did about 4 lines. Have a great day. You know that I want to bring with you towards the end of the day. You know that in advance. You know I try and do it about an hour before the Eastern Standard Time, or whatever, not so standard. What are we in? Daylight savings time? Is that standard? Not. That's probably not. Anyways, the Trump thing. Should we have a few words about that? Oh my goodness. I haven't heard a single lie that was said in that thing yet. Have you? I don't know. Not so important. But this probably, I don't think that, okay, I don't want to talk too much about politics. There's probably enough pundits out there on that. So try very hard, get 1 or 2 beers. That's all you need. Prepare like you would prepare for the best time of your life. Have a good day. A healing refuah shleima, Queen Rosette Basirit, Ve'es Akiva Gershom and Rachel Bastian, Teikshar Chayle Yisrael Oleinu, Fus and Nefesh Refuah Aguf, and have a great day. And I'll see you everyone for bringing tonight Be'ezras Hashem.